Just because you don't take insurance doesn't mean your clients can't use it. Mentaya is an out of network billing platform that gets clients to get back 70% back on therapy without the therapist lifting a finger. I've checked out their product and it's truly a game changer. It's what I wish I had in my private pay practice. They handle literally everything so you can focus on what matters therapy. Go to practiceofthepractice.com/Mentaya to try it out for free. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/MENTAYA to get started for free. Mentaya is amazing if you have private pay clients that want to bill their insurance. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 947. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. I'm so excited that you are here with me for our New Year, New Habit series. We have covered some pretty amazing ground. In episode 945, we talked about money leaks and what to do about it. We did a bonus episode on January 10th, all about saving yourself time and hiring the best people. We talked with Rebecca Capps back on the 4th about launching courses around body image. We talked about multiple streams of income. We talked about scaling. We've talked about HR mistakes and also 6 truths for C-suite folks. So all sorts of different things that we're covering. But, before we dig into today's show, I want to give some shout outs to other podcasts that you might like. These are friends of mine who have podcasts in this space around mental health, around growing your business. My friends Keli and Miranda, they are over at Zinni.me. They've got some amazing podcasts and trainings. Also, the Private Practice Startup is another great show that's out there. Private Practice Workshop, we love that show. And then my good friend Allison Pereira has the Abundance Practice Building podcast. So if you like this show, those are friends of mine that we hang out whenever we're in each other's towns, and we are all in this space of helping therapists to grow their businesses and also be mindful of wanting a thriving practice that we absolutely love, that it matches our value set, the impact we want to have on the world, and all those different things. Also, before we dive in, remember, if you are a 7-figure practice owner, the 7-Figure Practice Club applications are open until the end of January. This is going to be a small group of 12 7-figure practice owners, and we're going to meet twice a month, digging in with hot seats, trainings. We're also meeting in person twice for retreats to just connect with other people that are at our same phase of practice. So if you already have a 7-figure practice and you want to be around other 7-figure practice owners, you can apply over at practiceofthepractice.com/club. All right. Well, I am so excited about today's show. Today, we have Keli Carpenter, and Keli is no stranger to mind, body, and spirit awareness, having been introduced to transcendent meditation at 6 years old. With well over 20 years of experience, Keli is a Chopra certified meditation teacher, breathwork facilitator and trainer, conscious relationship parenting and uncoupling coach, and she's studied with so many amazing people and is founder of The Other Side of Average, Therapy for the Soul, and TOSA Method. Keli, welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, let's just start with, so I have a 9-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old daughter, so 2 daughters, and we do some meditation. How did you start doing this at age 6?
That's a great question. Really, because my mom was struggling. She was struggling mentally, emotionally. She was going through a really challenging divorce, and she is a little bit of a seeker. And she was looking for something, and someone to support her. And she got introduced to Transcendental meditation. And she went to learn, and really she just took me along to learn as well. And so I meditated just because I was told to meditate. Obviously, I didn't have those big life questions or work related stress to deal with. I just meditated because that was just the thing that I did growing up.
So, I mean, for me, I was told I had to go to mass and pray the rosary. So, for a lot of people, though, the way they're raised, they don't see the full value of that. They often reject it, leave it behind for whatever reasons. Like, when did you go from it being something you were told you had to do as a kid to then saying this is also something I want to do? Like, were you in your teens? Were you an adult? Like, what brought you to it, kind of from your own point of view, to want to join into that practice?
Yeah, great question. I, like many of us in our teen years, we kind of move away from some of those things that we're brought up with. And, that was me as well. But one of the things about meditation that it afforded me was the ability to see that I wasn't the stresses or the traumas or the stories and wounded narratives that would circulate in my mind. So my mom, struggled throughout my whole upbringing. I was when I was a teenager, my mom became a new mom again to two young girls at her third marriage. So I had enough of dysfunction and different experiences of trauma growing up. But what I realized is that meditation actually gave me the experience of, I would often use Gabor Mate's quote on trauma isn't what happens to us, it's what happens inside of us as a result of what happens to us. And I had the ability to see that I wasn't these circumstances, that I was so much more than that. So my mom gave me the biggest gift ever, something to keep me connected to my wholeness. But she also gave me lots of experiences that I still felt a bit defined by. And so, it was this process of witnessing awareness that we call in meditation. So I could see that there was this struggle inside of me. And so I went to get some help to help me with that. And when I went to a counselor when I was 19, she saw me as my story and as my traumas and as the wound or the victim. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. And so I went for a second appointment and I was like, okay, this is not the path for me. So it was really at a young age that I, because of what meditation afforded me, it of of what does it really take to break the cycle, to set myself free from these things that I was living and struggling with on the inside. And I spent a number of years in the corporate world, running myself ragged, climbing the ladder right out of high school. And when I was about 25, it was actually my health that brought me back to meditation because I had let it slip. I was always seeking and still reading and taking courses, but my practices had slipped. I was
Mm,
learning, but I wasn't really dropping in and embodying. And it was, through my health just saying, no, it's time to pause. It's time to stop. It's time to return to those roots. And so at 25, I got recertified again in transcendental meditation. When I became a teacher, I got certified under Deepak Chopra, which is primordial sound, and he was part of the TM organization back then. And I have three kids, and my oldest is 24, my middle is 21, and my youngest just turned 19. And they all meditate. They all
mm,
do breath work. They all, really understand and have an experience of what it means to listen to the messages that the body is telling them, you know, connected
mhm,
to something bigger than themselves, the part of us that can't be hurt or wounded by our experience, but more can use it.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. For me, I resonate with what you were saying about your mom, because when I was going through my uncoupling in 2021, and was living on the road in a camper during the pandemic in national parks, and kind of stuck in this camper with this person that I was uncoupling with the kids, that
Mm.
every morning I would wake up as soon as the sun came in and be like, I can't believe my life is falling apart in this way. And meditation, and Sam Harris in particular with his waking up app was one of the handful of things that would at least get me to some semblance of being grounded. And going for a walk every morning and planking, and I had this whole routine with journaling and reading the Tao and things like that. Um, but if we go back a couple years before that, when I turned 40, I had read the book How to Change Your Mind, and had never done psychedelics before. And I talked to my therapist, who he's been teaching meditation for 30 years, and is someone I really respect. And I was asking him because I wanted to think through, like, is this like a unnecessary shortcut? Is it kind of cheating? And he framed it to me as, it kind of gives you a sense of what meditation should feel like. You can kind of see the finish line. And then when you come back, you know what it's kind of supposed to feel like. And for me, that was helpful because I feel like I would try to meditate before that, and I'd be like, I feel like I'm just sitting here. Um, so there's a big discussion. There's a lot kind of in that, what I just said. But I guess one question I have is, as you think about the form of meditation that you teach, that you've been a part of, that idea of knowing if you're doing it right, what do you recommend for people when they're first getting started, in regards to just starting points?
That's great. This idea of doing it right, or sitting and, experiencing nothing, or having racing thoughts that we can't get away from, or, pain and vulnerability. Because what happens when we sit in meditation is we have to sit with ourselves.
Mm,
And, for some of us, that can be really challenging if we have a lot of stuff that's still held in the body and, trapped in the mind. And, in reference to the doing it right, if we are sitting, so oftentimes, if I back it up a little bit, oftentimes I talk about there's three really categories of meditation. There's focused meditation, observant meditation, and transcendent meditation. So focused is where we're focused on something for the whole time. We might be focused on audio. We might be focused on a particular breath pattern. We might be focused on a candle or something visual. And in observant, we're just observing what is without manipulation. So we're just witnessing this moment. And transcendent is the use of a mantra. It's not an English word, it's a Vedic Sanskrit word. And it's used for two purposes. One is the vibrational quality, and the other is it's just simply a tool for the mind. So we use the mind in just the right way to transcend the mind, hence the transcendent practice, where we can tap into that stillness within us. And whichever one we're doing, it's, oftentimes I say we are practicing the practice when we're implementing it.
mm,
And as long as if we're focused, let's say, if we're the focused practice, if we're focused on an audio, we're just staying with that audio. If we're focused on a particular breath pattern, we're staying with that breath pattern. We're witnessing what is as we're staying connected with the breath. If we are in an observant practice, we're really just being there and observing what is, observing the thoughts as they flow by, observing the breath, observing nature, observing our desire to get up and leave. Um, and with a transcendent practice, we're, you know, keeping that witnessing awareness on the mantra. And that is enough.
mm,
I often say we don't meditate for the experience in meditation. We meditate for the other 23 hours. Because if we are sitting in some stillness, we're bringing mindfulness, inviting in a state of presence, we're going to develop our witnessing awareness. We're going to connect deeper to that place of stillness
mm,
within us. So whether that's 10 minutes a day because that's all we've got, or it's twice a day for 20 minutes, if we're implementing the practice, we're going to start experiencing greater ease and flow in life. We're going to start experiencing some clarity of mind, some inner calm and stillness, some more responsiveness and less reactiveness.
mm. What are
It's
some
really just a
examples?
byproduct of meditation.
Yeah. What are some examples of mantras to use? Because I feel like as you broke that down, which is really helpful for me, um, the focused meditation and the observant, I feel like with the Waking Up app that I use, Sam Harris and other teachers definitely do those two. But I'm not sure I've experienced the mantra based. Like, what are some examples of mantras that you can use in meditation?
Hmm. Well, if you have a meditation teacher, so PSM, which is the primordial sound, or TM, which is the transcendental meditation, both trademark names, you have to go through a teacher to receive your personalized mantra. So it's very personal to you. In primordial sound, it's based on the moon's position at your date, place, time of birth.
Mm,
So it's like a Sanskrit word that is like a seed vibration that has a resonance, let's say, to the you before all the conditioning happened as we
mm,
grew up and grew older. Um, and but a universal mantra, or to give you an example of what a mantra would be, a universal one, which really is like an I am, is aham, or so hum. And we don't say it out loud, we say it silently to ourselves. So it's, when it's a personalized mantra and we are practicing it, it's like every part of our entire being or physiology knows that this is a time to drop in. And it's just
mm,
this effortless repetition silently. It's almost as if we are thinking a thought. What happens when we think thoughts, right? We associate it, and pretty soon we're like thinking about a holiday we had 3 years ago, and we're like, how did I get here? And we kind of trace it back, and it was because the mind, makes meaning and associates, and pretty soon we've got this monkey mind. And so when we give the mind something to do with the use of a mantra, is, we are better able to drop into that silent, still place within us. So it's
mm,
like I said, we're using the mind in just the right way to go beyond the mind. So
mhm.
transcending thoughts and accessing that silent space within.
Do you own a seven-figure practice? You've probably heard me talk a lot about the Seven Figure Practice Club recently. This is a new, amazing program where we are getting together seven-figure practice owners together in a small group of 12 to work together for a year. There's so many things that seven-figure practice owners deal with that they don't have a community to ask questions, learn, and grow from. If you want to apply to be in the Seven Figure Practice Club, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/club. There, you're going to be able to read all about what the program entails. We're going to be covering all sorts of things in our monthly meetings. We're meeting twice a month. The first meeting is 90 minutes, and we're going to have three 25-minute hot seats for you to dig in and to get questions answered, and also to help other seven-figure practice owners. The second meeting of the month is going to be one of our practice owners presenting on something they are knocking out of the park. And it's a chance to really be able to learn, teach, grow from each other in a way that you really don't find anywhere else in the marketplace. Also, in-person meetings are so important. And that's why twice a year, we're going to connect, once here in Traverse City, Michigan, and then another time somewhere else, yet to be determined. And we're going to connect, we're going to hang out, we're going to talk private practice, but we're also going to have a lot of fun. So if you want to apply for the Seven Figure Practice Club, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/club and fill out your application today. Now, if we're looking at therapists that want to incorporate different aspects of this into their therapy practice, um, obviously we want people to be trained appropriately before they just enter into a session and say, say this mantra. What work would you say that therapists need to first do personally, and then after that, I'd like to dig into, assuming that they get training, assuming that they're doing it correctly, what does that look like then in sessions with their clients? But let's start with, like, what do people, if people are hearing this and saying that sounds really interesting, I'm interested in getting more training, or starting somewhere and learning more and having more of a practice, What would you say that therapists need to do first before they ever even consider incorporating it into their practice?
I would say to practice it yourself. I always, so I'm a breathwork facilitator and trainer. And I always say, to my student facilitators is that we can only lead people as far as we've gone. And so having a greater embodied experience of the impact for ourselves. When we're talking about a transcendent practice, yeah, there is only a handful of places that you can be certified through. But this might be a good time for me to mention breath work because in a therapeutic setting, or even with my meditation students, if they say to me, oh, I was in this place where I felt really stressed and, had some reactions coming up and, I wanted to bring in the mantra, what would you suggest? Because the idea is we use the mantra for meditation, not for, we want to associate it with stillness, not associate it with, a place of stress. Because once our body has an experience of presence and that inner resourcefulness and that stillness that lives within us, it naturally knows where to go when we're in a state of stress. But we have to develop that. But what we can use in a moment to moment, day by day, is our breath because our breath only lives in the moment. Excuse me. So the more that we bring breath awareness into it, where the body and the breath intersect, is this deep place of, it's an access point actually to that inner resourcefulness, that place of stillness. So I use breath work, both as a tool to just help people access a certain stillness if they aren't a student in a transcendent practice with me. And I use breath work, conscious connected breath work, more of that embodied somatic integrative release, in more of a therapeutic setting.
Mm. So it sounds like, really from the meditation standpoint, making sure that you're doing, the trainings, making sure that you're working with a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But in some ways, what I'm hearing, and tell me if this is correct, is that the adding breath work and just the awareness of breath is maybe an easier entry point for more therapists than maybe going through a full training program in transcendent meditation.
Yes. Yeah. I really, can't say enough of the combination of breath work in all of its capacities, whether that's just breath awareness or whether that's actually a conscious connected breathwork practice. Bringing that into the therapeutic setting is highly valuable.
Mm.
It to empower people. I always say with breath work, it's an incredible practice to drop us into our feeling body. And how many people are not comfortable, don't feel safe feeling. I always say learning how to feel again is something that every human needs to do. Because most of us either grew up with, people around us whose emotions weren't safe, or we were told to shut down certain emotions. And all emotions are valid. It's more actually when they're shut down or when they're suppressed that they become destructive in some capacity. And as humans, we're pretty good at numbing and distracting and avoiding pain and vulnerability. But yet, it is actually that place when we feel safe to meet that pain and that vulnerability in life, you know, is so profound. We say in the breathwork world, a couple of things is that we can't heal if we aren't willing to feel.
Mm.
And on that somatic level, our issues are in our tissues. So in the work that I do, when I incorporate more of the therapeutic approach, the embodied approach, and the karmic approach. So I use inquiry and different, therapeutic models to really understand, reframe, some of our pain, some of our stories. And then the embodied approach is about getting into the body and releasing it cellularly, because we could understand it all we want, or even reframe some deep beliefs that we have. But if it's held cellularly, we're just going to keep recreating. So, to get through it in the body and release it in the body. And then the karmic approach is about that access to stillness.
Yeah, I'm wondering, is there a case study of, you don't have to say the person's name or any identifying details, where you feel like this really came to light, where you saw, whether it's a client you worked with, or a friend, or even yourself, is there sort of a case study that for you really represents, that the issues in the tissues and working through it through breath work and meditation?
Hmm. Uh, I mean, the TASA method that you mentioned at the beginning when you introduced me is really my life's work of utilizing all three of these practices to really break the cycle of pain or struggle or dysfunction. And so, I've got my own case studies myself. My children, I uncoupled from, a husband that has a lot of mental health challenges. And so my kids had some of their own experience of dysfunction and trauma in their younger years, even though they've also had the tools to work through it, to learn from it, to um, yeah, heal. I always say that, challenges are really divine opportunities to meet our wholeness. Life is always supporting and nudging us. Life's happening for us, not to us. So we can use them, but we really do need the right support and the right tools from that holistic approach. And so, I've seen it in my own children, and then all the clients that I've worked with. I have one really a case study that I would say is a really deep example of this holistic approach to healing. And it's a client of mine who spent, childhood in trauma, abused by his father, then sexually abused by, a family friend, always sort of searching for somewhere that felt safe. And, eventually just on the streets of Liverpool, and thought that, maybe I found my belonging as he's being groomed, and, um, bought things, and, this is maybe my, safe place to be loved. And pretty soon he was in a life of crime. He was in gangs. He spent, three different jail sentences. And about 15 years ago, on his last sentence, or maybe almost 20 now, he said, I will never go back to this life again. And he never did. But the thing is that he was still imprisoned in his own pain and suffering, a prison in his own body, with his own thoughts, with his reactions. And he came to work with me, and he really worked with me on all levels. So through all of the more therapeutic approach and somatic inquiry and the breath work and the meditation, in my group courses and my one-on-ones, and 10 months, he's really experienced a deep state of freedom. This whole time that he was in jail, he had two children. His wife followed him the whole time, but they had pretty chaotic upbringing, every one of them. And now he's also a grandfather, and it's amazing to see the transformation, in places that he would normally react, or he would normally be triggered. you know he is just responding from a place of love,
Hmm.
from a place of, like, sometimes I say it's, who we were created to be versus who, these traumas and these stresses have adopted us to be,
Hmm.
who we're being versus who we were created to be. And when we work in that deep holistic approach, we really can end years of pain and suffering. And his story, I've done a number of interviews with him. It's a very profound story to tap into. Yeah.
I think sometimes, whether it's therapists or any modality, people can get territorial, and they have the kind of the things that they focus on. When I think about just how diverse clients are, the more tools that we can have, and the more that we can be educated on what's out there, it's really, it's just so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's helpful to just know that one person may need meditation, someone else might need psychedelic assisted therapy, someone might need traditional therapy, or an e-course. Like, who knows? Um, for people that haven't had meditation or breath work be front and center as something that they think of as something that can assist with traditional counseling, what would you want to deconstruct for them to help them see the value, or how it can work together?
Mm-hmm. And, and I just want to highlight what you said there as far as different approaches for different people at different times. I really believe in that. And that's even why in training facilitators in breath work, I'm the first one to say, I don't believe breath work is for everyone. And I've had people come to me for breath work and I've turned them away because one of the things that breath work does is it opens up the feeling body, like I said. And sometimes people have avoided pain and vulnerability in their body for so long that is incredibly challenging. Even as you mentioned, plant medicine, I've worked in more of a therapeutic way with people that were so blown open by plant medicine that they didn't have a container to hold what came to the surface, even repressed memories that came to the
Mm-hmm.
surface, and spend a year supporting them through that integration. And so I really do believe in that holistic approach of using, you know, that, as I call it, the therapeutic approach, the embodied approach, and the karmic approach, and really putting it all together to support our clients to really come back to a place of safety in their own body, to gain really deep, true understanding and actual integrative healing. And yeah, so I really appreciate what you said as far as different hmm, different practices and approaches for different people at different moments. I'm not sure if I answered your question
Yeah, I think
directly, but you can
no,
ask me again.
and it was definitely more of comments back and forth, and I think that point of a container, the friends and colleagues that I have that are doing plant medicine work, I think are speaking
Hmm.
that same language. That whole set and setting and the preparation, and unlike how in the past, recreationally, oftentimes plant medicine has been used without thought of those things. We're looking at oftentimes plant medicines that have been used for thousands of years, and that have a history and have reasons that they think through things differently, and just now it's starting to have a resurgence, but that idea of a container, like, yeah, blowing things open and then not knowing what to do with it, that integration is so important, whether we're talking plant medicine or meditation or even therapy. Like, we want to be able to be there for our clients to, help them build that container to know what that next small step is for them in their own
Hmm.
healing. The last question I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
Hmm. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that I appreciate you and the work that you're doing in the service in the world. And then the other is through my experience of, years of practice is, our clients have the answers within them, and our ability to work with them on all levels, bringing them home to themselves, to me is really a key piece.
Mm. Keli, if people want to connect with you, if they want to follow your work, where should we
Thank
send
you.
them?
You can find me at theothersideofaverage.com is my website or on, any social platform, it will be at the other side of average. I'm mostly on Instagram if I am on social media. But yeah, that's where.
Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Joe, for having me.
Well, I am so glad that I didn't have a second cup of coffee and that instead I had a cup of tea this afternoon, because I feel like Keli, just her approach was so just like embodying the work that she does. And, there's some interviews where it's so full of energy for me and I'm jumping around and so excited. And other times where it's like, oh, it's like a remembering, a grounding of, who we are and what we can be. And I think that's part of this new year, new habits of finding that balance in ourselves of like, what do we want? What feels good? What is our body telling us? So frequently, our clients or we have these ridiculous New Year's resolutions that we know statistically most people will fall off of by February 1st. And I think that's good, because sometimes we have such a achiever mindset, a goal setting mindset, and we're not listening to like, why isn't this working? And then we feel all this ridiculous shame around giving up on our New Year's resolution. Well, maybe that New Year's resolution, it could be good for you, but also maybe it's not what you need right now at this chapter in your life, in this phase, in the busyness that you have. Just the other day, I was talking to a consulting client, and he was saying how, every morning he gets up with his little kids, and before work, he goes for like a 3-mile run. And I asked him, do you enjoy running? And he said, no, I hate it, but I know I'm supposed to, and it's good for me. And I don't want to ever tell someone like, you're doing good health habits, stop doing them. But to even just say, you have 2 very little kids right now, you're not getting enough sleep, you're trying to grow your practice, and it's okay if maybe you go for a walk with your kids, or maybe it's okay to skip a day and to listen to your body and to sleep in, or to just allow ourselves to inform ourselves as to how we're moving. Today just felt like a really good recentering for this series as we enter this new year. As we are entering this new year, it's great to be around people that are doing similar things that can give us information that can help us grow our practices, however that looks. We have Next Level Practice, which is aimed at solo practitioners, Group Practice Launch for those starting a group practice, and Group Practice Boss. All of those are going to be opening when we have Level Up Week kicking off on March 11th. You're welcome to pre-register for any of that over at practiceandpractice.com/level up. But the one thing that we've noticed is we have a lot of group practice owners that have outgrown our Group Practice Boss program. And that's where we're launching the 7-Figure Practice Club. So if you are a 7-figure practice owner, we are getting some phenomenal applicants, 7-figure and multi-7-figure practice owners that are saying, I want to be around other people that are playing at this level, and I don't want to burn out, and I don't want to hustle too hard. I want to have a lifestyle that I enjoy, that I feel is helping the world, where I help give people jobs, but also that I can talk to other colleagues about what that's like to be at that level. And often it feels really lonely. And so if that sounds good to you, to be around other 7-figure practice owners, I want to invite you to apply over at practiceandpractice.com/club. You'll see there all the things that are included in it. We're going through those applications now. Those close on January 31st. So please make sure you do that before we close those on the 31st. Again, that's practiceandpractice.com/club. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have an amazing day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.